Lieutenant Ava Monroe walked through the sunlit corridors of the Edwards Air Force Base with an air of quiet authority. Her footsteps echoed against the polished floors, but no one dared break the respectful silence she commanded. Ava wasn't loud or flashy, yet every movement exuded confidence honed over years of training and missions that few could ever imagine attempting. Pilots younger than she, fresh from training academies, would glance her way and instinctively straighten their posture, as if they could absorb some fraction of the competence she carried effortlessly. There was something almost mythic about her presence, a calm precision that both inspired and intimidated. From the moment she had arrived at the elite base, stories of her past exploits circulated like wildfire. Ava had earned her wings in record time, surpassing cadets twice her age, navigating complex aerial combat simulations with unparalleled accuracy. Her instructors often remarked that her instincts were unnervingly precise, as if she could predict the movements of both aircraft and human adversaries before they happened. These were not mere rumors. They were truths validated by mission reports, commendations, and the occasional hushed conversation among seasoned officers who regarded her with a mixture of respect and awe. The base itself was alive with tension on this particular morning. Military operations demanded vigilance, and every individual knew the stakes. Outside the hangars, jets gleamed under the morning sun, their polished metal reflecting both light and the seriousness of the work being undertaken. Mechanics bustled beneath them, checking instruments and engines, their faces etched with concentration. The sound of hydraulic systems hissing and engines warming created a rhythm that was almost meditative to some. But to Ava, it was the heartbeat of readiness, a familiar symphony she had long internalized. She paused briefly, observing the young pilots practicing maneuvers in simulators and on the tarmac. She knew that for many of them, this was a proving ground, a place where reputations were made or broken. Ava's own journey to this point had been anything but ordinary. She had grown up near Dayton, Ohio, in a family with deep military roots. Her father had served as a fighter pilot, and her mother as a logistics officer, instilling in her a sense of discipline and duty from an early age. Even as a child, Ava demonstrated remarkable aptitude for spatial awareness, coordination, and rapid problem-solving traits her parents nurtured carefully. By the time she was old enough to attend the Air Force Academy, she had already set her sights on becoming a pilot capable of tackling the most dangerous missions. Her academic performance was flawless, but it was her natural composure under pressure that truly set her apart. On the flight line, Ava's reputation was both a blessing and a curse. While most of her colleagues admired her abilities, there were whispers of envy, subtle undercurrents of doubt from those who couldn't quite comprehend how someone so young could excel at tasks that others struggled to master even after years of experience. She never responded to gossip. Her focus was unshakable, and her results spoke for themselves. In the air, she became a force of nature, calculating trajectories, anticipating enemy maneuvers, and executing strategies with split-second precision. On the ground, she carried herself with a quiet dignity, letting her actions define her character rather than words. Today, Ava was preparing for a routine briefing, though routine never truly applied to her. Reports of unusual intelligence activity had filtered in overnight, and the general had requested her presence specifically. This was not a trivial assignment. The general's attention signaled the seriousness of the situation. As she approached the briefing room, the door swung open, and she was met with the familiar sight of officers reviewing maps, intelligence logs, and communication transcripts. Conversations paused briefly as she entered, a subtle acknowledgement of her presence. Ava offered a nod, but said nothing, her focus already shifting toward the task at hand. The room was charged with anticipation. Charts and satellite images displayed potential threats, and officers discussed the possible ramifications of enemy actions. Ava took her seat near the head of the table, her posture perfect, her mind already dissecting the data. She didn't need to speak to be understood. The intensity in her gaze conveyed a depth of understanding that few could match. Around her, other pilots and intelligence officers exchanged glances, recognizing the weight of having her in the room. They knew that her judgment was reliable, her instincts nearly infallible, and her commitment absolute. As the briefing commenced, Ava's analytical mind worked tirelessly. She mapped scenarios, calculated probabilities, and mentally rehearsed responses to potential complications. Outside the room, the base continued its usual hum of activity. Yet within these walls, the atmosphere was different, charged with the quiet anticipation that precedes critical decisions. Ava felt it acutely, but it did not unsettle her. She thrived under pressure. Her life, after all, had been defined by moments where calm determination separated success from disaster. When the general entered, the room fell silent. His reputation was legendary, and his presence commanded attention. He scanned the officers and pilots before settling his gaze on Ava. There was a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes, a silent recognition that she was no ordinary officer. Ava returned his look steadily, aware that the unspoken communication between them carried meaning. They had crossed paths before, in training exercises, and while the general rarely expressed overt praise, his respect for her skill was evident in the subtle nod he gave. The morning briefing stretched into hours as strategic plans were discussed and contingencies debated. Ava listened intently, occasionally offering insights that were concise yet remarkably effective. Her contributions, though measured, carried weight. By the end of the session, it was clear that she had become central to whatever operation was about to unfold. Colleagues left with renewed clarity and purpose, while Ava remained, reviewing notes and running calculations silently in her mind. There was a quiet intensity to her preparation, a focus that would define her role in the coming days. As the sun climbed higher, casting stark shadows across the base, Ava stepped outside for a brief moment, inhaling the crisp morning air. The jets lined up on the tarmac glinted in the sunlight, a reminder of the precision and power she commanded. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself, aware that her next mission, whatever it might entail, would test every ounce of skill, discipline, and courage she possessed. The whispers of her reputation followed her, but Ava Monroe did not seek recognition. She sought only to perform her duty with perfection, to face challenges with unflinching resolve, and to honor the trust placed in her by those who relied on her abilities. And so, as the base bustled with activity, Ava walked back toward the briefing rooms, ready to confront whatever awaited her, unaware that the moment she had been preparing for was closer than anyone could imagine. This was the calm before the storm, and the storm would soon know her as Specter 6. The hum of activity on the base seemed louder than usual that morning. Mechanics adjusted jet components with meticulous precision. Pilots ran through checklists with a heightened sense of purpose, and intelligence officers whispered hurriedly among themselves. Ava Monroe sensed it all, not with alarm, but with the quiet awareness of someone who had long trained herself to read the subtle cues of urgency. Something unusual was unfolding, though its details remained elusive. She walked briskly toward the command center, her leather flight jacket creaking slightly with each step. Her mind raced with possibilities, each scenario meticulously calculated, each outcome weighed carefully against the skills she possessed. General Hawthorne, the commanding officer, was already in the room when she arrived. His posture, rigid yet commanding, signaled that the news he carried was serious. Known for his strategic brilliance and unflinching decisiveness, the general had an aura that could silence an entire room without a word. Today, the weight of authority was amplified by concern. When he spoke, even the most seasoned officers leaned forward, hanging on each syllable. "We have a situation," he began, voice measured but firm. "Intel reports suggest an imminent threat that could compromise national security if left unchecked. This is not routine. I expect every detail to be handled with precision. Ava's eyes narrowed as she absorbed the information. The reports described suspicious activity in multiple regions, including encrypted communications intercepted from unidentified sources. No names were mentioned, no flags clearly marked. It was subtle, yet the implications were dangerous. In a career built on analyzing threats and responding under pressure, Ava had learned to trust the instincts that emerged in moments like this. Something was brewing, and it demanded immediate attention. She didn't flinch, didn't react outwardly, but internally, her mind was already strategizing. Around the room, officers murmured quietly, their concern palpable. Many had faced high-pressure situations, yet there was a certain unease that clung to this brief. Perhaps it was the ambiguity, or perhaps it was the weight of knowing that mistakes here could have consequences far beyond the base. Ava noticed the younger pilots exchanging anxious glances, their composure faltering under the tension. She understood. She had been in their shoes once. But unlike them, she thrived in uncertainty. Pressure sharpened her instincts, honed her mind, and prepared her to execute the impossible. General Hawthorne continued, pacing slowly before the large digital maps projected on the wall. He highlighted regions of activity, airspace anomalies, unusual satellite blips, and communications that defied standard encryption protocols. Each detail was a potential clue, and each gap in information represented a critical risk. "We don't have much time," he said. "Our adversaries are testing us, probing for weaknesses. If we miscalculate, the outcome could be catastrophic." His gaze briefly swept over the room before resting on Ava. In that instant, he didn't speak, yet his eyes communicated a silent acknowledgement of her capabilities. He had noticed her before, of course her precise record, her calm decisiveness, but today, it seemed, he was recognizing something more, trust in a mission that required excellence beyond ordinary measures. Ava's mind shifted seamlessly from analysis to preparation. She reviewed the information mentally, considering the equipment at her disposal, her squadron's readiness, and the possible strategies her adversaries might employ. Scenarios unfolded in her imagination like a chessboard, each move countered with foresight. She calculated risk with an almost surgical precision, balancing probability with necessity. Every detail mattered, from fuel levels and weather conditions to communications lag and potential enemy reaction time. She ran these calculations silently, her brain working faster than anyone else in the room could possibly follow. Meanwhile, the other pilots began discussing potential courses of action, their voices a mixture of concern and speculation. Ava listened but spoke only when necessary, offering insights that were concise, accurate, and immediately actionable. Her interventions were few, but each one carried weight. Even the general nodded subtly in agreement when she pointed out a potential vulnerability in the operation's initial approach. It wasn't arrogance. It was clarity born of experience. By the end of the discussion, the room had gained a better sense of direction, largely guided by her quiet input. Outside the command center, the base continued its frenetic rhythm. Jets roared to life, climbing into the sky for training exercises that now doubled as readiness checks. Ground crews moved with precision, aware that every second mattered. Ava observed from the large observation window, noting the alignment of aircraft and personnel with a practiced eye. There was a rhythm to the chaos, and she thrived within it. To outsiders, it might have appeared stressful, even overwhelming, but for Ava, it was the environment in which she excelled. The stakes sharpened her senses, focused her mind, and reminded her why she had pursued this career with relentless determination. The general's voice broke through her thoughts again. "Ava," he said, direct and unwavering, "I need you personally on this one. Your experience and judgment are unmatched. I am assigning you to lead the preliminary reconnaissance. You'll be flying the first sortie, evaluating the situation, and reporting any anomalies directly to me." The room went silent. It was a clear signal. This was no ordinary assignment. Her peers recognized the significance immediately. To be singled out by the general for such responsibility was both an honor and a sign of immense trust. Ava simply nodded, acknowledging the task with quiet determination. As preparations began, Ava briefed her team efficiently, assigning roles with precision. Communications officers, navigation specialists, and support personnel all listened intently, following her instructions without hesitation. Her authority was unquestioned, but it was earned, not demanded. There was an unspoken understanding. When Ava Monroe led a mission, success was not a possibility. It was expected. Her presence inspired confidence, even in those who initially doubted themselves. The air was charged with tension, yet tempered by trust. Together, they began the meticulous process of planning, every detail accounted for, every contingency rehearsed in advance. The hours passed swiftly. Ava moved from one station to another, checking equipment, verifying data, and running final simulations in her mind. Her focus was absolute, her movements deliberate. Even the smallest error could have catastrophic consequences, and she treated every element with meticulous care. Outside, the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the tarmac. The sky took on an ominous hue, as if nature itself sensed the tension building within the base. Ava didn't notice. Her mind was fully occupied, parsing information, anticipating outcomes, and preparing for the inevitable test of skill and judgment. Finally, the general returned, calling a final assembly. He stood before the gathered officers and pilots, his presence commanding immediate silence. "This mission will challenge each of you in ways you have never experienced. Success depends on vigilance, skill, and precise execution. I am placing particular trust in Lieutenant Ava Monroe. Her leadership and judgment will be critical to our objectives. I expect every one of you to support her fully." A murmur of acknowledgement ran through the room mixed with awe. Ava remained composed, her expression neutral, but inside, a quiet fire of readiness burned. The moment she had anticipated was approaching, and she was ready. As the assembly dispersed, Ava lingered briefly, reviewing her mental checklist once more. She could feel the tension in the air. The base itself seemed to hold its breath. She knew that what was coming would require every ounce of skill, courage, and determination she possessed. Yet she felt no fear. In fact, there was a certain exhilaration in the anticipation. This was what she had trained for, what her career had been preparing her to face. And when the time came, she would meet it with unwavering precision and calm. Even as the sun set, casting long golden streaks across the runway, Ava Monroe felt a surge of resolve. The storm was approaching, and she would stand at its center, ready to navigate the challenges ahead. Her colleagues respected her, her superiors trusted her, and soon, the world would learn why the name Ava Monroe, as she would soon become known. Specter 6 would command attention wherever she went. The base seemed unusually quiet as the late afternoon shadows stretched across the tarmac. Ava Monroe stood alone in the briefing room, reviewing intelligence reports once again. The data she had been studying all day revealed patterns that were troubling, yet nothing conclusive until an envelope arrived on the table in front of her. It was sealed with the general's insignia, marked Top Priority, Eyes Only. The weight of the envelope was heavier than paper and ink could ever convey. Ava's heart did not race, but she could feel the subtle shift in tension around her. This was no ordinary mission briefing. She broke the seal carefully, sliding out the contents. The pages were filled with detailed reports, satellite images, encrypted communications, and a series of directives that immediately conveyed the gravity of the situation. The mission was clear in its objectives: infiltration of hostile airspace to recover critical intelligence, ensure minimal detection, and return without incident. The risk level was extreme. Lives were on the line, and failure was not a possibility. As Ava read through each line, her mind processed the variables with clinical precision, calculating probabilities, contingencies, and strategies that might maximize success while minimizing exposure. Her mind did not falter. Years of training and experience had prepared her for missions of high complexity. Yet there was a subtle tension in the air that only someone like Ava could detect, the kind of tension that signaled stakes higher than those of any routine sortie. Outside the room, young officers and fellow pilots scurried along the corridors, unaware of the extraordinary assignment that had just landed on her desk. Ava knew she would have to navigate this mission, not only with skill, but with a calm authority that inspired confidence and trust in her team. The first step was preparation. Ava meticulously reviewed each piece of intelligence, mapping out possible threat zones, calculating fuel requirements, and running mental simulations for scenarios both likely and improbable. She considered the performance of her aircraft, the potential reaction times of enemy patrols, and the reliability of communications. Every detail mattered, from atmospheric conditions to the probability of equipment failure. She ran these calculations silently, visualizing the mission as if she were already in the cockpit, performing maneuvers with flawless precision. As she worked, her team gathered. Lieutenant Marcus Hawley, her communications officer, looked at her with a mix of concern and admiration. "Lieutenant Monroe, this mission, it's high risk," he said quietly. Ava did not flinch. "High risk is exactly why we succeed where others hesitate," she replied. Her voice was calm, measured, yet carried a weight that demanded attention. The team nodded, absorbing her resolve. They knew that under her leadership, their chances of success were far greater than anyone else's, even in the face of seemingly impossible odds. The general himself appeared shortly after, his presence commanding immediate silence. He moved to the front of the room and laid out the stakes with deliberate clarity. "This operation is critical to national security," he said. "Your mission, Lieutenant Monroe, is to penetrate enemy territory undetected, retrieve the intelligence, and return with actionable data. Time is of the essence. I am entrusting this to you because I know you can execute it where others would fail. I expect excellence, precision, and discretion." His gaze lingered on her, conveying not just authority, but a rare confidence in her judgment. Ava acknowledged the responsibility with a subtle nod. She understood that the general's trust was not given lightly. It was a recognition of skill, judgment, and composure under pressure, the very qualities that had defined her career. As he left the room, the weight of the mission settled fully upon her shoulders. Yet Ava did not hesitate or waver. This was what she had trained for, the moment where preparation and instinct converged into action. The next hours were consumed by meticulous preparation. Ava reviewed equipment checklists, coordinated with intelligence analysts, and ensured that every piece of technology at her disposal was functioning perfectly. Flight plans were adjusted multiple times to account for variable wind patterns, radar coverage, and potential interception points. Simulations were run repeatedly, each iteration revealing small adjustments that might make the difference between success and disaster. The level of precision demanded left little room for error, and Ava embraced the challenge with unwavering focus. Her team was equally prepared, working with disciplined efficiency. Mechanics, navigators, and communications officers followed her instructions with near ritualistic precision, trusting in her judgment. There was an unspoken understanding that failure was not an option. The preparation phase became a crucible, testing not only their equipment, but their cohesion as a unit. Ava's calm authority created an environment where nerves were steadied and even the most anxious personnel found confidence in her leadership. As evening fell, Ava took a rare moment to step outside onto the observation deck. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The base was alive with activity. Jets ready for departure, engines humming, and personnel moving with purpose. Ava inhaled the cool air, centering herself. She thought of the responsibility resting on her shoulders, but she also felt a surge of clarity. This mission was more than a test of skill. It was an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, ingenuity, and courage under conditions that would challenge even the most seasoned officers. By nightfall, the final briefings were complete. Ava gathered her team for one last review of the mission parameters. Maps were spread across the table, satellite images pinned to boards, and communications channels tested repeatedly. Every possible contingency was discussed, and every potential weakness accounted for. Her team listened intently, absorbing her calm and deliberate explanations. They understood that she was not just guiding them through a plan. She was instilling confidence, discipline, and trust, the intangible elements that often determine the success of missions, far more than equipment or tactics alone. Sleep was brief. Ava remained in her quarters, reviewing the mission in her mind. She visualized every maneuver, every evasive action, and every communication exchange. Her thoughts were precise, methodical, and detailed. Though others might have found the intensity overwhelming, for Ava, it was invigorating. Preparation had always been her armor, and tonight it would serve her well. Every risk was calculated, every variable accounted for, yet she remained aware that unpredictability was inevitable. Success would require not just planning, but instinct, adaptability, and courage. As the first hints of dawn touched the horizon, Ava donned her flight suit, securing her helmet and gear with practiced efficiency. She checked each instrument, each system, and each communication line one final time. Her team moved in synchronized precision around her, the culmination of hours of preparation, now poised for action. She felt the familiar rhythm of anticipation settle in her chest, the same rhythm that had accompanied every flight, every mission, every moment where skill and courage intersected. The base seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the jets gleamed under the early morning light, engines humming softly. Inside, Ava's team was ready, and she herself felt the clarity that came from absolute preparation. The envelope of uncertainty had been opened, and now the mission demanded execution. There was no room for hesitation, no margin for error, and no second chance. The responsibility was hers, but so was the opportunity to achieve the extraordinary. With a final glance at her team and a nod of assurance, Ava stepped toward the aircraft. The cockpit welcomed her like an old friend, familiar yet charged with the tension of impending action. She strapped in, secured her helmet, and ran through the pre-flight checklist once more. Every lever, dial, and instrument was accounted for. The engines roared to life, vibrating beneath her as if sensing her focus. Outside, the base was alive, but inside the cockpit, the world narrowed to mission, skill, and resolve. This was the moment that defined a career. Ava Monroe, already respected and admired for her skill and composure, now faced the assignment that would test every facet of her ability. The mission was secret, dangerous, and unprecedented, yet she met it with quiet determination. In her mind, the calculations were complete, the strategies set, and the contingencies prepared. The only remaining element was action, and when the time came, Ava Monroe would move with precision, courage, and the unwavering discipline that had earned her the respect of everyone around her. The first sortie of the mission awaited, and Ava knew that beyond these walls, the challenges would escalate. Her role was clear: lead, succeed, and return with results. As the engines thrummed beneath her, she allowed herself a single thought. This mission was hers to command, and she would meet it without fear. The rest of the world could only wait. The briefing room was unusually quiet that morning, the kind of silence that stretched taut across every officer present. Ava Monroe stood near the center, reviewing her pre-flight checklist one last time, her focus unwavering. The general had called an urgent assembly, summoning all key personnel involved in the upcoming operation. Normally, such gatherings were procedural, filled with maps, diagrams, and satellite images. But today, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Everyone could sense it even before the general spoke. The tension was thick enough to slice through the room like a blade. General Hawthorne entered, his presence commanding immediate attention. He paused briefly at the doorway, scanning the room with a gaze so sharp it seemed to weigh the intentions and capabilities of each officer and pilot present. His silence demanded respect, and the murmurs of casual conversation evaporated instantly. Ava met his eyes calmly, reading the subtle cue that something monumental was about to occur. She had worked with the general before, yet there was a weight to his demeanor today that surpassed all prior encounters. The general cleared his throat, and every officer straightened, waiting for his words. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice resonating through the room, "today marks a critical moment in the history of our operations here at Edwards. We are facing unprecedented challenges, and our success will hinge on extraordinary skill, judgment, and courage. I have called this assembly not to discuss logistics, but to recognize one of our own who embodies these qualities to an exceptional degree." Ava remained composed, though her mind instinctively ran through the possibilities. Recognition from the general was rare, and when it came, it carried immense significance. She had been through numerous operations, excelled under pressure, and quietly earned respect from her peers, but this felt different. There was a tension in the room, a collective awareness that whatever was about to be announced would leave an indelible mark. The general's eyes met hers directly. "Lieutenant Ava Monroe," he said, and his tone shifted to one that carried both authority and reverence. "Your skill, composure, and unwavering commitment have not gone unnoticed. Today, I am assigning you a call sign that reflects not only your abilities, but the level of trust we place in you for this mission. Your call sign shall be—" He paused deliberately, letting the room hold its collective breath. "Specter 6. The words echoed through the briefing room, reverberating off the walls, and time seemed to pause for a fraction of a second. Every conversation halted, every gaze turned toward Ava, and even the youngest officers felt the chill of awe. Specter 6, a designation reserved for those whose reputation and skill had transcended ordinary recognition. A name whispered among elite pilots, carrying with it the weight of legend, competence, and near-mythical ability. Ava's expression remained calm, her eyes steady, though inside she felt the gravity of the moment. The call sign was more than a moniker. It was a symbol of trust, expectation, and the acknowledgement that she was now operating in a realm few could comprehend. She felt the invisible weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, heavy yet affirming. This was the recognition of every maneuver executed flawlessly, every mission survived, and every decision made under pressure with precision. The room remained silent, the significance of the announcement rippling through the ranks. Fellow pilots exchanged glances, a mixture of admiration, awe, and subtle envy passing between them. This was not merely a title. It was an emblem of extraordinary skill and unwavering reliability. Those who had flown with Ava understood that her calm, deliberate approach was unmatched. Yet seeing the general confer a call sign so rare elevated the moment beyond personal accomplishment. It became a collective recognition of the exceptional within the military hierarchy. Lieutenant Marcus Hawley, her communications officer, leaned toward a colleague and whispered, "She's really it, isn't she? Specter 6. That's not given lightly." His colleague nodded, wide-eyed. Indeed, The significance was profound. This call sign indicated that Ava was entrusted with missions of the highest priority, the kind where lives, national security, and even international stakes hung in the balance. It was a label that carried reverence, expectation, and an implicit challenge to live up to the legend it represented. Ava absorbed the reactions without responding. She had learned early in her career that recognition, while gratifying, was not the goal. Excellence was the goal. Yet even she could not ignore the subtle shift that had taken place within the room. The air had changed. Respect mingled with quiet awe. For the first time in a long while, Ava felt the weight of a symbol larger than herself. Specter 6 was no longer simply a name. It was a mantle, a responsibility she could not take lightly. The general continued, addressing the room as a whole. Let this be a reminder that excellence is not accidental. It is earned through preparation, dedication, and the willingness to act decisively under pressure. Lieutenant Monroe has demonstrated these qualities consistently, and as Specter 6, she will serve as a standard for others to aspire to. Support her fully, follow her guidance, and recognize the trust that comes with this assignment. His words were deliberate, leaving no room for misunderstanding. The room absorbed the weight of the declaration, the significance lingering like a tangible force. Ava's mind, though focused on the mission ahead, briefly reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. She recalled the countless hours in simulators, the rigorous training that tested every skill, and the early flights where a single error could have ended a career or worse. Each success, each calculated maneuver, and each display of calm judgment had culminated in this recognition. Yet she also understood that a call sign was not an endpoint. It was a living responsibility, demanding continuous excellence and unyielding focus. A team around her began to adjust to the new reality. Communications officers aligned their channels to the call sign. Navigators and pilots recalibrated documentation, and colleagues began to address her formally as Specter 6. The change was subtle, but profound. A name that once carried whispers of respect had now become an emblem of command, responsibility, and expectation. Ava felt a quiet sense of clarity settle within her. The mission ahead was critical, and now, with the call sign affixed, her role was unequivocal. As the assembly dispersed, officers and pilots approached her individually, offering brief nods or words of acknowledgement. Some spoke directly. "Congratulations, Specter 6. You've earned this. We're counting on you." Ava accepted each acknowledgement with the same calm demeanor that had defined her career. Inside, she felt a mixture of satisfaction and resolve. The call sign represented more than recognition. It represented trust in her ability to face the extraordinary and succeed where others might falter. Later, as she returned to her quarters, Ava reflected on the symbolic weight of the day. She ran simulations of the mission in her mind, overlaying every potential complication with her own calculations. The call sign was now her constant companion, a reminder that every decision, maneuver, and choice would carry heightened significance. Yet she also felt a surge of motivation. Specter 6 was not just a name, it was a challenge, a declaration of capability, and a promise to herself and her team that she would rise to meet every expectation. As night fell over Edwards Air Force Base, the stars above glimmered in sharp contrast to the earthbound tension below. Ava prepared her gear for the upcoming mission, ensuring every instrument, system, and channel was functioning perfectly. The weight of the call sign settled fully into her consciousness. Specter 6 was more than recognition. It was responsibility, expectation, and legacy. Every pilot, officer, and team member who knew the significance would now look to her as a standard bearer, a leader capable of navigating the impossible with unwavering skill and calm authority. By the time she climbed into the cockpit, the call sign had become an intrinsic part of her identity. The mission ahead would demand every ounce of skill, precision, and courage she possessed. She was no longer just Ava Monroe. She was Specter 6, and the world, whether aware of it or not, was about to witness the extraordinary. The early morning air at Edwards Air Force Base carried the crisp tang of metal and fuel, a scent Ava Monroe had long associated with readiness. Specter 6 moved through the hangar with quiet authority, observing the final pre-flight checks on the jets assigned to the upcoming mission. Every movement was deliberate, every glance purposeful, as if her eyes could see not just the present, but the potential risks lurking in every corner. Today's preparations were more than routine. They were the culmination of weeks of intelligence gathering, simulations, and strategic planning. This was the final phase before a mission that could define her career and test every skill she possessed. Her team gathered around, attentive and focused. Lieutenant Marcus Hall, responsible for communications, double-checked encrypted channels, while navigators ran calculations over maps, plotting routes and alternate paths for every conceivable scenario. Mechanics fine-tuned engines and avionics systems, ensuring that every instrument functioned flawlessly. Even a minor malfunction could jeopardize the operation, and Ava treated nothing lightly. Specter 6 was a call sign that demanded perfection, and she intended to embody it in every detail. The day began with a rigorous briefing. Ava led her team through simulations, reviewing the mission objectives step by step. She emphasized precision, efficiency, and adaptability. "Remember," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "this mission isn't just about flying or navigating. It's about anticipating, reacting, and staying one step ahead at all times. Every decision you make counts. Lives, intelligence, and national security depend on it." Her team absorbed her words, their respect deepened by her clarity and composure. Training began with the simulators, where Ava ran her crew through countless scenarios. Enemy detection systems, weather anomalies, unexpected mechanical failures, all were replicated in painstaking detail. Each pilot and crew member faced high-pressure challenges designed to test reactions, judgment, and coordination. Ava moved among them, observing, correcting, and guiding. She didn't just train. She taught anticipation, situational awareness, and improvisation. In these moments, her team learned why Specter 6 was more than a name. It was a standard of excellence that demanded adaptation and precision. Obstacles arose immediately. During one simulation, a sudden systems failure forced the pilots to execute emergency protocols. Ava analyzed the situation in real time, directing the team with calm authority. Alternate routing, Sector Delta. Marcus, re-establish encrypted comms. Everyone else, maintain position and prepare for evasive maneuvers, she instructed. Every command was precise, calculated, and executed with minimal delay. By the end of the drill, the team had corrected the simulated errors flawlessly. Ava's interventions not only ensured success, but reinforced the confidence of everyone present. Physical training was equally intense. Ava led her team through endurance drills designed to sharpen focus under stress. Pilots ran obstacle courses, executed emergency procedures, and practiced high-G maneuvers under controlled conditions. Ava herself moved through each exercise with precision, demonstrating the stamina, agility, and determination expected of a leader. Her presence elevated the effort of every team member, pushing them beyond their perceived limits without a single word of unnecessary instruction. Observation of her competence alone instilled motivation, discipline, and a quiet sense of urgency. During midday, the team convened for strategic review. Maps were spread across the briefing tables, highlighting potential threat zones, radar coverage, and terrain challenges. Ava meticulously analyzed each scenario, calculating fuel efficiency, flight paths, and timing with mathematical precision. She considered environmental factors such as wind patterns, altitude, and visibility, overlaying these on potential enemy patrol routes. Her ability to anticipate variables was remarkable, transforming hypothetical scenarios into actionable strategies. Team members watched in awe as she effortlessly synthesized complex information into clear, executable plans. Even the mechanical crew felt the intensity. Engines were inspected repeatedly, sensors tested, and avionics recalibrated. Ava moved among them, ensuring that every detail, no matter how minor, was accounted for. A single oversight, she reminded them, could compromise everything. Check and double check. We succeed only when everything functions as intended. The mechanics nodded, understanding that her focus was not mere perfectionism, but a survival necessity. Each adjustment, each inspection, contributed to the broader objective, mission success. The afternoon brought live fire simulations, where pilots executed maneuvers against simulated enemy intercepts. Ava monitored each action, analyzing speed, trajectory, and decision-making. When a rookie pilot hesitated, she intervened gently but decisively. You calculated the path, but remember the timing. Anticipate the next move, not just react to the current one, she instructed. Her guidance transformed hesitation into confidence, ensuring that every participant understood the balance between calculated risk and precise execution. By the end of the session, the team had achieved a level of cohesion and efficiency that far exceeded expectations. As evening approached, fatigue began to show, but Ava's intensity never waned. She reviewed communications protocols, emergency evacuation procedures, and intelligence reports once more. Every detail, every possibility, every contingency was accounted for. The team followed her example, moving with quiet focus, the respect deepened by her unwavering dedication. Even as darkness fell over the base, the hangars buzzed with activity, engines humming softly, lights flickering against the polished metal of the jets. The preparation phase had become a crucible, forging both equipment and team into a cohesive unit ready to face the unknown. By nightfall, Ava called the team together for one final briefing before rest. She reviewed key objectives, emphasized situational awareness, and reinforced the importance of trust, both in themselves and in each other. Tomorrow, she said, voice calm yet commanding, we move from preparation to execution. Remember everything you have learned today. Remember that you are not just following a plan, you are executing a mission that will demand clarity, precision, and courage at every turn. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and trust each other. We succeed together or not at all. After dismissing her team, Ava remained behind to conduct one final inspection of her own equipment. She checked instruments, communications gear, and navigation systems, ensuring that every detail was in order. The quiet hum of the base at night contrasted sharply with the intensity of the day. But for Ava, it was another opportunity to focus, to internalize every variable, and to visualize the mission in its entirety. She reviewed each scenario, considering contingencies for weather, enemy detection, and mechanical failure. Every possibility had been anticipated, yet she remained acutely aware that unpredictability was inevitable. As she prepared to rest, Ava reflected on the day's rigorous preparation. The weight of the call sign Specter 6 settled fully into her consciousness. It was more than a symbol of recognition. It was a responsibility, a standard, and a promise. Every maneuver, every decision, every command would now carry heightened significance. Yet instead of fear, Ava felt a surge of clarity and determination. She was ready. Her team was ready. And when the mission began, every hour of preparation, every calculation, and every moment of training would converge in action. The base was quiet now, lights dimmed except for the faint glow of instrument panels and distant security patrols. Ava lay on her cot, visualizing the mission, running simulations in her mind, and mentally rehearsing each possible outcome. Sleep was brief, yet purposeful. Her subconscious worked through strategies, contingency plans, and reaction sequences. She knew that the success of the mission depended not just on skill, but on clarity under pressure, adaptability, and the ability to act decisively when the unexpected occurred. By the time dawn arrived, Ava Monroe's Specter 6 was fully prepared. Every element of the operation, from team coordination to mechanical readiness, had been scrutinized, practiced, and refined. The mission was no longer theoretical. It was imminent. And as she stood by the aircraft, observing the first light of day glinting off the polished metal, she felt the familiar rhythm of anticipation settle into her chest, the rhythm of readiness, precision, and calm resolve that had defined her entire career. Tomorrow, the operation would begin. Tomorrow, Specter 6 would lead her team into the unknown, executing a mission that would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage she possessed. And as she adjusted her flight helmet, ran through the final systems checks, and gazed out at the early morning sky, Ava knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was ready. The first rays of dawn cut sharply across the tarmac at Edwards Air Force Base, glinting off the sleek, polished fuselage of the aircraft awaiting deployment. Ava Monroe's Specter 6 stood at the edge of the cockpit, her gloved hands resting lightly on the frame as she surveyed the final checks. The base hummed with energy, engines warming, technicians moving with precision, pilots preparing for departure. Every sense in Ava's body was heightened, yet her demeanor remained calm, collected, and utterly focused. This was the moment she had trained for, rehearsed for, and anticipated, the mission that would test every ounce of skill, courage, and judgment she possessed. Her team was already in position. Lieutenant Marcus Hawley sat at the communications console, his eyes scanning multiple channels for any sign of interference or anomaly. Navigation officers were at their posts, cross-referencing flight paths with intelligence reports, while mechanics performed last-minute instrument calibrations. Ava moved among them one final time, checking systems, reviewing coordinates, and confirming contingencies. "Stay sharp," she instructed quietly, her voice steady, "but trust your training. Trust the plan, and trust each other." Her words were simple, yet carried the authority of experience and the weight of the call sign she now bore. The engines roared to life, vibrating through the hangar like a living pulse. Ava slid into the cockpit, strapping herself in with practiced precision, each motion fluid, controlled. Instruments flickered to life, displays illuminating her face in the dim morning light. She ran through the pre-flight checklist, confirming every system: navigation, communications, weapons, if needed, and fuel levels. The simulations, drills, and repeated exercises of the past weeks had brought her to this precise moment. Every decision, every action had led to this. The execution phase of a mission that demanded excellence under pressure. The countdown began. Ava's team took their positions, engines throttled, wings poised for takeoff. With a final signal from the control tower, the aircraft surged forward, tires gripping the tarmac as if drawing strength from the very earth itself. The jet lifted gracefully into the sky, breaking the morning stillness with a controlled roar. Ava's hands moved confidently over the controls, adjusting altitude, speed, and trajectory with a precision born of relentless practice. She glanced at her team, their faces illuminated by the instruments and displays, and gave a brief nod. They were ready. The mission had begun. The first challenge emerged almost immediately. Enemy radar systems detected the initial incursion, sending alerts that blinked across the cockpit screens. Ava assessed the data instantly. "Evasive pattern alpha," she instructed, her voice calm but commanding. The team executed the maneuvers flawlessly, weaving through restricted airspace, evading detection by enemy patrols with split-second timing. Every calculation she had made during preparation came to life in these critical moments. Specter 6 was not just a call sign. It was a standard that demanded action, precision, and the ability to anticipate danger before it became imminent. Turbulence added another layer of complexity. High-altitude wind patterns threatened to push the aircraft off course, forcing subtle adjustments in flight paths. Ava's instincts guided her, and she communicated continuously with Marcus, coordinating altitude corrections and course adjustments with minimal delay. "Sector Bravo is clear," she reported. "Eyes scanning multiple displays. Maintain current vector. Anticipate patrol rotation in 3 minutes." Her commands were concise, yet comprehensive, and the team responded seamlessly. It was coordination, trust, and expertise executed under pressure. Suddenly, a secondary threat emerged. Intercept drones, small and agile, moved into the mission corridor, programmed to track unauthorized aircraft. Ava assessed the trajectory instantly. "Prepare countermeasures," she instructed. Flares and decoys were deployed, luring the drones away from the main flight path. The maneuver required exact timing. Too early or too late, and the aircraft would be compromised. The team executed with flawless precision, every adjustment synchronized with her commands. The threat passed without incident, yet the intensity of the moment reminded everyone of the stakes. Ava's focus remained unwavering. The terrain below shifted from flat plains to rugged elevations, forcing constant recalibration of altitude, speed, and navigation. Satellite imagery and intelligence data guided each decision, yet real-time judgment remained critical. Sensors detected anomalies in electronic interference, an unanticipated challenge. Marcus reported minor signal fluctuations, and Ava responded immediately. Switch to secondary comms, maintain silence on primary channel. Route confirmation in 10 seconds. The adjustments were executed flawlessly. Even as variables multiplied, Ava's calm authority guided the team, reinforcing the cohesion that had been honed through rigorous training. Midway through the mission, the true objective became clear: a remote installation housing sensitive intelligence. The approach required stealth, precision, and careful timing. Ground-based defenses posed a significant threat, and radar coverage was more extensive than initial intelligence had suggested. Ava analyzed the layout, plotting the most efficient route for both approach and exit. "Focus on speed and altitude synchronization," she instructed. "We enter under the radar sweep and exit before they can react." Every instruction was executed with a synchrony that only comes from rigorous preparation and absolute trust. The operation demanded absolute composure. Enemy patrols moved unpredictably, environmental factors shifted, and mechanical systems responded with slight variations. Yet Ava's command remained precise, her decisions timely, and her control absolute. Each obstacle was met with immediate adjustment, recalculated trajectories, alternate paths, and tactical maneuvers executed in perfect harmony with her team's coordination. Even the rookies in the crew found themselves moving with confidence, guided by the clarity and authority of Specter 6. Finally, the team reached the objective. Intelligence retrieval was the next critical step. Secure data modules were identified, isolated, and prepped for extraction. Ava directed the sequence with meticulous care, ensuring the process was completed without detection or delay. Every second mattered. A single error could compromise the mission or put the team at risk. Yet her calm presence maintained focus and efficiency. The retrieval was executed flawlessly, the intelligence secured, and the team prepared for the extraction phase. The return journey presented its own set of challenges. Enemy forces, now alerted to the operation, attempted to track the aircraft. Radar signatures and high-speed interceptors posed imminent danger. Ava adjusted altitude and trajectory, employing evasive patterns, deploying countermeasures, and coordinating with her team in real time. The skill, training, and precision that had earned her the call sign were fully on display. Every movement, decision, and command was executed with unwavering discipline. Hours later, as the aircraft broke through the final stretch of airspace toward Edwards, relief was palpable but unspoken. The mission was not yet complete, but the most critical phases had been executed flawlessly. Ava monitored systems, adjusted for minor variations, and prepared her team for final approach. Every element of the operation had required skill, courage, and trust, and every member had performed impeccably under pressure. The culmination of preparation, leadership, and execution was evident in the cohesion and precision of their actions. Touchdown at Edwards Air Force Base was met with quiet reverence. Engines throttled down, instruments shut off, and the team exhaled collectively. Ava guided the aircraft safely to its final position, ensuring a smooth and controlled landing. As she removed her helmet, the weight of the mission and its success settled fully upon her. She looked at her team, seeing pride, relief, and admiration mirrored in their faces. Specter 6 had led them through an operation that demanded the extraordinary, and they had emerged unscathed. In the debriefing that followed, every detail was reviewed, every decision analyzed, and every obstacle evaluated. The intelligence retrieved was invaluable, and the mission was deemed an unqualified success. The general himself commended Ava, noting her skill, composure, and leadership under conditions of extreme pressure. Specter 6 performed beyond expectation, he remarked. This mission sets a standard for precision, courage, and operational excellence. Ava accepted the acknowledgement with quiet humility, knowing the real reward lay in the mission's success and the lives preserved through careful execution. As she returned to her quarters that evening, Ava reflected on the hours in the cockpit, the split-second decisions, and the flawless coordination that had defined the operation. Specter 6 was more than a call sign. It was a testament to preparation, skill, and trust. The mission had tested every facet of her abilities, and she had met the challenge without hesitation. Yet even in the aftermath of success, Ava knew that each operation was a lesson, every detail a reminder that vigilance, precision, and courage were never optional, but essential. The final stretch of the return flight was quieter than Ava Monroe expected. The tension that had dominated the earlier phases of the mission seemed to dissolve into a measured calm. Yet she remained vigilant, eyes scanning instruments, gauges, and communication screens with the same precision that had guided her through the entire operation. Specter 6 was a call sign, not just of accomplishment, but of responsibility. Even a moment of carelessness now could undo everything her team had achieved. The base appeared in the distance, early evening sunlight reflecting off runways and hangars, signaling the completion of the mission. Ava adjusted altitude and course, ensuring that their approach adhered to every safety parameter. Marcus Hale's voice broke the quiet through the comms, calm yet tinged with relief. Specter 6, all systems green. Approach vector confirmed. Touchdown imminent. Ava nodded, acknowledging the coordination with the practiced composure of someone who had faced countless critical operations. The landing was executed flawlessly. Tires met the tarmac with precision, the aircraft slowed smoothly, and the team taxied to the designated secure zone. Mechanics and ground personnel moved efficiently to secure the plane, their movements precise, mirroring the exacting standards Ava had instilled throughout the preparation phase. Her team disembarked, still alert but visibly relieved. For a few moments, the world seemed suspended in recognition of what had been accomplished. The mission had been completed without a single critical error, a remarkable feat given the complexity and risks involved. Inside the debriefing room, the atmosphere shifted from tension to anticipation. Maps, screens, and satellite imagery were displayed, detailing every element of the mission. Ava and her team began their report, walking through objectives, actions taken, and contingencies executed. Each movement, decision, and improvisation was documented with meticulous care. The general listened intently, eyes scanning each screen, absorbing the full scope of the operation. "Excellent execution," he finally said, voice steady but resonant. "Your precision and leadership have ensured the success of an operation critical to national security." Ava accepted the acknowledgement with quiet composure. Though her team had performed flawlessly, she understood the full weight of the mission's impact. The intelligence they retrieved was not just data. It was a strategic advantage, a key to preventing potential threats, and a demonstration of operational excellence. The success validated months of preparation, countless hours of training, and the meticulous planning that had guided every decision. Her call sign, Specter 6, had been more than symbolic. It had embodied the execution of extraordinary skill and leadership under pressure. Her peers in the room offered nods of respect, some lingering to whisper quiet congratulations. There was admiration in their eyes, a recognition not only of the mission's success, but of the person who had led it. Leadership under pressure was rare, and Ava's calm, precise, and decisive command had elevated every member of her team. Even the youngest pilots felt the impact of her example. Observing her, they saw what discipline, preparation, and courage could achieve when combined with unwavering focus. The general continued, addressing the broader significance of the mission. The intelligence recovered by Specter 6 and her team has confirmed patterns of activity that were previously unverified. This data allows us to anticipate threats, allocate resources effectively, and maintain strategic advantage in critical regions. Your success today has implications beyond this operation. It shapes our ability to respond to future challenges with certainty and precision. The weight of the general's words settled into the room, affirming the magnitude of what had been accomplished. Ava's mind absorbed every detail, yet she remained focused on the operational aspect. The mission was a success because each component had functioned in harmony. Preparation, leadership, skill, and trust had converged into flawless execution. The general's praise was meaningful, yet Ava understood that success was measured not by recognition, but by the completion of objectives and the preservation of her team's safety. That acknowledgement, while gratifying, was secondary to the knowledge that they had achieved the impossible. The team's performance was discussed in detail. Marcus Halle highlighted the flawless execution of communications protocols, while navigators emphasized the precision of course adjustments under fluctuating conditions. Mechanics confirmed that no critical system failures occurred, and every adjustment performed during the mission had been implemented with remarkable efficiency. Ava facilitated the discussion, ensuring that each accomplishment was noted, each challenge analyzed, and each lesson extracted. This debrief was not a celebration. It was an exercise in accountability and preparation for the challenges still to come. Later, outside the debriefing room, Ava walked alone for a moment, reflecting on the day. The sky was painted in deep twilight, the first stars beginning to shimmer above the base. The quiet contrasted sharply with the intensity of the past hours, yet the calm allowed her to process what had been accomplished. Specter 6 was no longer simply a call sign. It had become a marker of capability, trust, and resilience. Every member of the team had relied on her guidance, precision, and decision-making under pressure. The success of the mission confirmed not only her skills, but the confidence that others placed in her judgment. Returning to her quarters, Ava reviewed the intelligence recovered, scanning for any overlooked anomalies or subtle indicators that might require follow-up. Every detail mattered. Her calm, methodical approach ensured that no potential threat or opportunity was missed. The magnitude of what had been achieved became clearer with each review. The mission had not only succeeded in its immediate objective, but had altered the strategic landscape in ways that would influence operations for weeks, months, or even years. Later that evening, a small ceremony was held. The general personally addressed Ava and her team, formally recognizing the extraordinary nature of the mission. "Specter 6, he said, voice resonant and deliberate, you have demonstrated what exceptional training, focus, and leadership can achieve. Your performance sets a benchmark for all operatives under my command. Let this call sign serve not only as recognition, but as a standard for excellence and dedication." The words carried more than admiration. They carried the weight of institutional trust, history, and expectation. Ava accepted the recognition with quiet humility. While the call sign had previously symbolized potential, it now represented tangible achievement. It was no longer an abstract emblem, but a living testament to skill, discipline, and leadership. She looked at her team, their expressions a mixture of pride, relief, and respect. They had executed the impossible together, and in doing so, had strengthened not only their operational capability, but also the bond of trust that defined them as a unit. The broader implications of the mission became evident in the following days. Analysts, intelligence officers, and strategic planners integrated the recovered data into operational frameworks, confirming patterns that had previously been speculative. The success of Specter 6 and her team had prevented potential threats, enabled targeted actions, and enhanced the readiness of multiple units across the region. Ava's role had been central not just as a pilot or operator, but as a leader capable of guiding her team through unprecedented challenges with precision and calm authority. Even in quieter moments, the significance of the mission lingered. The name Specter 6 was no longer whispered only in anticipation or expectation. It was spoken with respect, acknowledgement, and even reverence. Within the walls of Edwards Air Force Base, among both peers and superiors, Ava Monroe had demonstrated that leadership under pressure was not merely a function of authority, it was the embodiment of skill, preparation, and unwavering composure. As the evening deepened, Ava allowed herself a moment of reflection. The mission was complete, the intelligence secured, and the team's performance flawless. Yet she knew that every success carried with it the responsibility to maintain vigilance, preparation, and readiness for future operations. Specter 6 had proven herself, but the call sign was not an endpoint. It was a standard to uphold, a mantle of responsibility to carry, and a reminder that extraordinary skill is always a work in progress. For Ava Monroe, the day marked both an achievement and a beginning. She had navigated danger, coordinated flawless execution, and ensured the success of a mission critical to national security. The respect of peers and superiors was evident, yet the true reward was the knowledge that preparation, discipline, and leadership had ensured the safety of her team and the success of the operation. Specter 6 was now synonymous with precision, courage, and unwavering competence, a name that would resonate long after the immediate mission had concluded. The days following the mission were marked by a mixture of intense activity and quiet reflection at Edwards Air Force Base, while Ava Monroe, Specter 6, continued to perform her duties. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The mission's success reverberated through the base, reinforcing confidence in intelligence operations, enhancing strategic readiness, and inspiring every officer and operative who had witnessed or learned of her performance. Ava moved through her routines with the same calm composure she had always exhibited, yet now there was a quiet weight to her presence. She carried not just responsibility, but also the recognition of having achieved something extraordinary. Debriefings continued over several days, ensuring that every detail of the mission was analyzed, every decision scrutinized, and every contingency documented for future reference. Analysts combed through the intelligence recovered by Specter 6 and her team, confirming its strategic significance. Enemy patterns, previously speculative, were now fully understood, allowing higher command to make precise, informed decisions. Ava's leadership had not only ensured the mission's success, but had set a standard for operational excellence in complex, high-risk scenarios. Her team, still riding the wave of adrenaline and accomplishment, looked to her for guidance in the days that followed. Even routine assignments carried a sense of heightened expectation. The trust they had developed during the mission was stronger than ever, built on the shared experience of navigating extreme danger with precision and composure. Ava recognized the importance of this cohesion. "We succeed because we operate as one," she reminded them during a team briefing. "Every decision, every action, every communication matters." Today proved that. Let's carry it forward. Word of Specter 6's success reached not only Edwards, but also strategic command. High-level officers and analysts praised the operation, noting the seamless coordination, the retrieval of critical intelligence, and the skill demonstrated under conditions of intense pressure. The mission became a case study in operational efficiency and leadership, and Ava's name, Specter 6, was referenced repeatedly in reports, briefings, and strategic planning sessions. The call sign, once a symbol of potential, had now become synonymous with precision, courage, and exemplary leadership. Ava herself reflected on the significance of what had transpired. The mission had been successful, yet she knew that recognition was secondary to the operational outcome. Every maneuver, decision, and command had been executed with purpose, yet she remained acutely aware that the world beyond the base continued to present new challenges. Specter 6 was not just a title or a call sign. It was a responsibility to maintain readiness, to continue refining skills, and to serve as an example for others who would follow. Even in quieter moments, the memory of the mission lingered. Ava often found herself revisiting sequences of flight, decisions made in split seconds, and the coordination that had allowed her team to operate flawlessly under pressure. These reflections were not mere reminiscences. They were learning tools, opportunities to refine strategies, anticipate future threats, and continue the pursuit of operational excellence. The mantle of Specter 6 carried with it the understanding that each success was also a preparation for the challenges yet to come. Recognition ceremonies were held at the base. A general personally commended Ava and her team, acknowledging the exceptional skill, courage, and leadership demonstrated during the mission. He emphasized not just the outcome, but the manner in which it had been achieved: meticulous preparation, flawless execution, and unwavering composure under pressure. "Specter 6 has set a benchmark," he said, voice resonant, "a standard that will be studied, admired, and emulated. Let it remind every officer that excellence is earned through discipline, courage, and commitment." The recognition extended beyond formal ceremonies. Colleagues, peers, and even subordinates approached Ava to acknowledge her leadership. Some spoke in hushed tones, expressing awe at the precision with which the mission had been conducted. Others were more direct, seeking advice on improving performance, coordination, or decision-making under pressure. Ava listened, offering guidance and mentorship where appropriate, yet always emphasizing that leadership was as much about preparation and trust as it was about recognition. "Excellence is not about being noticed," she said. "It's about ensuring that every operation succeeds, every team member is safe, and every objective is achieved. Recognition is a byproduct, not the goal." Ava's personal reflection on the mission revealed deeper truths. She considered the countless hours of preparation, the rigorous training, and the mental discipline that had allowed her to navigate extreme danger with composure. Specter 6 was not simply a symbol of success. It was a testament to the intersection of skill, training, courage, and leadership. Every pilot, mechanic, analyst, and communications officer who had contributed to the mission had relied on her ability to maintain clarity under pressure. The call sign had become a living embodiment of collective achievement, responsibility, and trust. As weeks passed, Ava continued her duties with unwavering commitment, yet she allowed herself moments of quiet reflection. The mission's success had strengthened her confidence, but she understood that complacency was a threat greater than any enemy. Specter 6 was not just a title. It was a standard to uphold every day, in every assignment, and in every circumstance. It was a reminder that true excellence required continuous effort, vigilance, and dedication. The legacy of the mission began to ripple outward. Other teams within the Air Force studied the operation, learning from the strategies, coordination, and decision-making that had defined its success. Ava's approach to leadership, combining calm authority, meticulous preparation, and trust in her team, became a model for training exercises, mentorship programs, and operational planning. Specter 6 was no longer simply a call sign. It was a case study in excellence, resilience, and the power of preparation. Even as life at the base returned to its routine cadence, the mission's impact persisted. Ava and her team continued to train, refine protocols, and maintain readiness for the next assignment. Yet there was a subtle shift in perception. The presence of Specter 6 commanded respect, inspired confidence, and symbolized the highest standards of military excellence. Younger officers and recruits looked to her as a benchmark, while experienced personnel recognized the precision and judgment that had earned her both trust and admiration. Ava often walked alone along the edges of the airfield in the evening, the sun casting long shadows across the tarmac, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The call sign Specter 6 was more than recognition. It was a responsibility to continue striving, to lead by example, and to uphold the highest standards in every mission, every exercise, and every decision. She thought of the countless hours of preparation, the split-second decisions, and the trust placed in her by every team member. The weight of the title was significant, yet it was a source of motivation, focus, and purpose. In private moments, Ava also considered the broader implications of the mission. The intelligence they had recovered had strengthened national security, enabled precise operational planning, and prevented potential crises. The success had reaffirmed the importance of preparation, coordination, and leadership under pressure. Every maneuver, every decision, every carefully calculated risk had contributed to outcomes that extended far beyond the immediate operation. Specter 6 had become a symbol not just of skill, but of impact and responsibility. The culmination of the mission, the recognition, and the continued excellence of Ava Monroe left a lasting imprint on the Air Force community. Her name, call sign, and actions were recorded in operational briefings, mentorship programs, and strategic discussions. Specter 6 had become a symbol of leadership under pressure, of preparation and precision, and of the power of trust between a leader and her team. Ava understood that the legacy she was creating was not merely personal. It was institutional, shaping expectations and standards for generations to come. As the base settled into quiet night, Ava stood atop the observation deck, looking out at the airfield below. The stars above mirrored the precision and discipline that defined her career. The hum of distant aircraft, the subtle flicker of lights across the tarmac, and the soft rustle of wind in the early night carried reminders of the mission, the responsibility, and the trust inherent in the call sign, Specter 6. Ava knew that the journey was ongoing, that challenges would arise, and that excellence required perpetual vigilance. Yet for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction. The mission had been executed flawlessly, her team had performed beyond expectations, and the intelligence recovered had strengthened strategic operations. Specter 6 had proven itself not just a name, but a legacy. And as Ava Monroe adjusted her flight jacket against the cool night air, she felt the profound clarity that comes from knowing preparation, courage, and leadership could converge to achieve the extraordinary.